Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon X and Y analysis video. Today's video is going to be all about Mega Alakazam, so let's get started by taking a look at this Pokemon's typing, ability, and stats. So to start things off, Mega Alakazam is a mono-psychic type Pokemon, much like the regular version of Alakazam, which gets this Mega Evolution through the use of the Alakazite item. Now upon Mega Evolving, Alakazam loses either its Synchronize, Inner Focus, or Magic Guard ability in favor of the Trace ability, which is a very unique ability that allows you to copy the abilities of your opponents. Now as a result of this, Mega Alakazam can theoretically be more offensively powerful or defensive than the regular version of Alakazam depending on the type of ability you trace. For example, if you do trace something such as Sheer Force or Protean, Mega Alakazam obviously has a much greater offensive presence because of those abilities boosting the power of your moves or giving you stab in the case of Protean. Whereas from a defensive standpoint, if you trace a ability that maybe gives you an immunity or allows you to potentially have a way to take hits better or something like that, such as, getting Flash Fire or something like that. This could also allow Alakazam to potentially come in a lot easier than the regular version of Alakazam, because you could potentially trace an immunity and then be immune to something that your opponent might actually be wanting to hit you with, such as in the case of getting Flash Fire if put up against a Heatran or something like that. So this ability is extremely versatile overall, and something that Mega Alakazam definitely benefits from. However, arguably this is the worst ability because of Magic Guard being just one of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion. So Trace does have its merits, but there's a lot of arguments right now as to whether or not Mega Alakazam is even worth it, because you do lose the Magic Guard ability, preventing you from maybe running a Focus Sash on regular Alakazam or running like Life Orb without any drawbacks and other stuff like that. But as far as a side-by-side comparison of the two versions of Alakazam are concerned, you can see very clearly here that upon Mega Evolving, Alakazam gets a boost in its physical defense, its special attack, and its speed, making this Pokemon ridiculously fast and ridiculously powerful, and also able to take physical hits a bit better, which is something that it severely lacks in that department because of its usual base 45 defense, which is now boosted up to 65, which still isn't that good, but it is a bit better, hopefully allowing this Pokemon to maybe take a physical hit that it normally would not be able to. But because of its ridiculous speed stat being base 150, this actually allows Mega Alakazam with max speed to outspeed Pokemon of up to base 83 speed, holding a Choice Scarf or being boosted by one stage in their speed, which is something really cool because that's really cool because Mega Alakazam actually can come in on a Dragonite that has boosted up to +1 and outspeed and hurt it for some really big damage, because you still outspeed even after the one Dragon Dance, which is something really cool. Obviously you have to be worried about extreme speed, but that's another story. But overall, this Pokemon obviously, as you can see, does gain quite a bit of power upon Mega Evolving, and makes it extremely threatening due to its ridiculously fast speed and really great special attack. So for the first set that I have for you in this video, we're going to begin by going with a Timid Nature to increase your speed but lower your physical attack. And for the ability, we're going to be going with Magic Guard, which is going to obviously turn into Trace upon Mega Evolving. But for the EVs, we're going to put 4 into its defense, 252 into its special attack to max it out, and then 252 EVs into its speed to max it out as well, making Mega Alakazam as fast and as powerful as it can possibly be, and then going with the Alakazite item to allow you to achieve this Mega Evolution. But for the moves, the first one we're going to be going with on this set is going to be either Substitute or Calm Mind. Substitute allowing you to get behind a protective barrier to shield you from attacks and statuses, allowing you to potentially deal a significant amount of damage to your opponent as they try to break your sub before they're actually able to damage you directly. And this is especially good for Mega Alakazam because of how much damage it can actually do with its ridiculously high special attack stat. Also, this move is particularly useful against anything that wants to come in and try and Sucker Punch Mega Alakazam, as you can now get behind a sub as they attempt to Sucker Punch you, and then are freely able to attack them and deal with them without having to die from a Sucker Punch, which is, really nice. But if you want to give Alakazam a little bit more of an offensive presence, you can run Calm Mind to boost your special attack and special defense by one stage, which is especially good for this Pokemon as well because of how fast and powerful it already is. So if you have managed to take out anything on your opponent's team that may be outspeeding Mega Alakazam, you can bring it in, Calm Mind, and then have a really easy time potentially sweeping your opponent's team with this Pokemon, which is something that actually can happen quite a bit because of how powerful and fast it is. But for your first attack, attacking move on the set, we're going to be going with either Psyshock or Psychic as your main Psychic type stab. Psyshock obviously being the move to hit your opponent's physical defense, whereas Psychic hits your opponent's special defense. Psyshock, in my opinion, being the more useful move in OU because of things like Blissey that have a significantly lower physical defense, and Mega Alakazam can actually two-shot Blissey after Stealth Rock damage. So if a Blissey wants to come in, switches in, takes Stealth Rock damage, and switches in on a Psyshock, it's going to die on the next turn, which is something absolutely amazing for this Pokemon. But Psychic obviously is the more standard move to use because you know exactly how that's going to hit your opponent normally, but both have their merits, so it's really whichever one you feel like you want to go with. But along with that, we're going to be going with either Shadow Ball or Signal Beam, both as really good coverage moves to give you some different type coverage overall along with your Psychic type stab. Shadow Ball being a really great move overall just because there are only two types in the game that resist it, being obviously dark types and then normal types, which are immune to it, but overall this also gives you a really good way to deal with other Psychic types and deal super effective damage to them, as well as hit ghost types super effectively. But Signal Beam can also be really useful to allow you to hit grass types, dark types, and Psychic types super effectively, but not as useful overall as Shadow Ball is because of how little things there are in the game that now resist Shadow Ball. And then finally, to go along with these two moves, we're going to be going with either Focus Blast, Dazzling Gleam, Energy Ball, or Hidden Power Fire, all of which are really viable moves in the last move slot for Mega Alakazam. Focus Blast arguably being the best option because of its really great power and amazing type coverage along with your Psychic type move and also other Shadow Ball or Signal Beam, but do keep in mind that it is quite inaccurate because it is only base 70 accuracy. Dazzling Gleam is also a really nice way to help you deal with dark types, as this allows you to hit them super effectively, as well as also hitting dragon types super effectively, which is something that Alakazam did not have a reliable way of doing prior to Gen 6 outside of Hidden Power Ice. And because there are so many dragon types you're going to be running into, this is a really nice move to make use of. And then Energy Ball could also be used for any ground, rock, or water types you're running into, and Hidden Power Fire obviously for the abundance of steel types that you run into in the OU tier. But overall, this set just gives you a ton of coverage and allows Alakazam to be a very potent sweeper with its amazing special attack and speed being used to its fullest potential on this type of set. And as for this next set, I have a little bit more of a defensive set for Mega Alakazam to run. So we're going to start this one off by giving it a Calm Nature to increase its special defense and lower its physical attack, or a Timid Nature to increase its speed but lower its physical attack. And then for the ability, we're going to be going with Magic Guard, which is obviously just going to turn into Trace upon Mega Evolving. But for the EVs, we're going to put 252 EVs into its HP to max that out, 196 into its special defense to make this Pokemon a bit more specially defensive, and then 60 EVs into your speed, which is going to do a couple of different things depending on your nature. With a Calm Nature, which is obviously going to be boosting your special defense, the 60 speed EVs allow Mega Alakazam to outspeed Pokemon of up to base 110 speed that are running max speed, allowing it to outspeed Pokemon such as Latios and Latias, and also be quite a bit more bulky because of your HP and special defense investment. However, if you do go with the Timid Nature, this actually allows you to outspeed Pokemon of up to base 125 speed or lower, allowing Alakazam to be quite a bit faster. And if you are curious as to a side-by-side comparison as to this Alakazam and a regular Alakazam with no Mega Evolution, you are actually simultaneously more bulky, more powerful, and faster than a regular Alakazam with the Timid Nature. However, with the Calm Nature, you are a bit slower, but you still are more powerful and more bulky, which is something that makes this particularly unique for this Alakazam, because you don't really expect an Alakazam to be able to take hits that well, but because we are going to be just as powerful as a normal one, we can actually reliably invest into its bulk, making it quite a bit more of a defensive Pokemon that is still able to dish out a massive amount of damage to your opponent's team. And then again, we're obviously going to be running Alakazite as the item to allow it to achieve this Mega Evolution to do all the really cool stuff that this can do. But obviously this is also meant to use the Trace ability in a more defensive way because it can give you an immunity, allowing you to deal with your opponent in a much easier way if you have an immunity to a type of attack they're going to be wanting to go for against you. But for the moves, the first one we're going to be going with on this set is either going to be Taunt or Future Sight. And Taunt is really great because it allows you to shut down any of your opponent's Pokemon that are trying to use any boosting moves or any non-attacking moves such as status moves or healing moves, and this is actually really great because it allows Mega Alakazam to shut them down and then effectively deal a significant amount of damage to them and really give them a lot of trouble because they're not going to be able to support themselves and their teammates as easily as they normally would be able to. But Future Sight is also, in my opinion, one of the most underrated moves in the game, as it can be used very effectively if you have a team built around being able to incorporate this. And it's actually really not even that hard to incorporate it if you just have it paired up with a Pokemon that is easily able to make use of something that Future Sight would be good against. So for example, Future Sight, go for that, and then switch out your Alakazam into a Pokemon such as a bulky fighting type, and that is one that I would recommend, such as like Conkeldurr, Machamp, or maybe even Hariyama or something like that. Bring it in, and then your opponent now has to switch out because they don't want to take that hit super effectively. They switch out into a Pokemon that is able to take physical hits well, but maybe not special attacks too well, and because of Future Sight getting an attack boost this generation, your opponent now switched in a Pokemon that's going to have to take a massive amount of damage from the Future Sight, even though they attempted to bring it in to potentially counter something that is more of a physical attacker, such as, you know, like a Gliscor coming in on a Conkeldurr or something like that, you know? And the thing is that the only things that Future Sight really has to worry about are Psychic types, Steel types, and Dark types, and the Steel and Dark types would not want to switch in to take the Future Sight if you have a Fighting type out on the field. So that is something to just keep in mind as a really awesome combination with Future Sight, but Taunt also could be a really great way to break stalling and things like that. But as for your main Psychic type attacking move, if you're not going with Future Sight, or if you just want to use one including Future Sight, Psyshock and Psychic are definitely the way to go, again for the same reasons that I mentioned before. And then for coverage, we're also going to be running either Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, or Focus Blast, depending on the type coverage you think you're going to need with this particular Alakazam. And then for the last moveset, we're actually going to be making use of Recover to allow this Pokemon to recover quite a bit of HP and keep it sustained throughout battle, which is something that it can do very easily if you bring it in on special attackers because of the boosted special defense that we're putting into this Pokemon, as well as the max HP, allowing it to wall special attackers very easily and also recover off the health that it takes upon taking damage from the special attackers. So overall, this is a more defensive way to run Mega Alakazam, but a really good way to run it nonetheless because it makes it just as powerful as a normal Alakazam while giving it quite a bit more bulk and being able to deal with Pokemon in a different way than a normal, just fully offensive Mega Alakazam set would. But anyways, everybody, that is it for this video, so I wanted to thank you all for watching. Feel free to follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Rykard3, and also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/trainerrykard, and also feel free to bookmark the 6th Gen moveset database in the description, which will have all of these movesets for Mega Alakazam, as well as for every other Mega Evolution and 6th Gen Pokemon that I've already done in this analysis series, and then also join the Zat at zat.com/pokegrounds, where you can find an easy place to trade, battle, and get friend codes for other people, get friend safaris and all that really good stuff, and just a really friendly chat room that you can all go into. But anyways, everybody, as I've said, that is it for this video. So as always, thank you all for watching, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.